Here are the top 18 definitions and examples chess tactics motifs you must know. Motifs means types of tactics commonly encountered in chess. Understanding these motifs will help you recognize tactical patterns, both in trainer and in your actual games. Chess tactics are discussed often, but what is a chess tactic? There are many ways to describe chess tactics, but perhaps the simplest is to say that a chess tactic is a move, or series of moves that brings an advantage to a player. This advantage can be material, like winning a piece, or even an attack that results in checkmate. Richard Teichmann's famous quote that chess is 99% tactics may not be exactly true. But this sentiment shows the importance of chess tactics. The most common question I hear from chess students and friends is some version of, "How can I improve?" Every strong player has heard this question countless times, and every aspiring player has asked it. The stock answer is logical: whether you like it or not, is to solve tactical problems. Nothing else matters particularly much if you hang a piece in each game. Tactics are all about patterns. Strong players have an enormous mental library of chess patterns. They recognize the components of knight forks and back rank mates instantaneously. Tactical patterns are the most fundamental, but there are many kinds of patterns: patterns of pawn structure, patterns of endgames, patterns of attack and defense, etc. There are many ways to build tactical strength. There are websites offers a training such as Chess24, lichess.org, Chessable, and Chess.com's Tactics Trainer is a great resource which doesn't provide hints in the chapter title. However, solving a good collection of problems organized by theme is a great way to master them. At the end of this video, I'll give you a puzzle trainer example to test yourself what you've learned after this lesson. Frequent asked question: how can one most efficiently acquire patterns? Are you ready? Let's jump right to it. Number 1. Attacking f7 f2. A tactic or threat that involves the targeting of the opponent's weakest square. Often f7 and f2 are referred to as the weakest squares on a chessboard, because they are protected only by the king at the start, so often these tactics would occur somewhere in the opening to early middle game stages. There are many possible attacking ideas and threats that take place surrounding those two critical points. The famous idea of Legal's mate would be one example of tactical motifs surrounding the f7, f2 weak points, after the move. e4, e5, knight f3, d6, bishop c4, knight c6, knight c3, bishop g4, h3, bishop h5, knight takes e5, bishop takes d1. If knight takes e5, queen takes h5, knight takes c4, queen b5 check, c6, queen takes c4, white wins back the material. And white has used the shocking knight takes e5 discovery to win a pawn, bishop takes f7 check. The key idea of this tactical motif: exposing black's biggest weakness to start a game. Tactics that occur on either black's f7 square or white's f2 square would be tagged under this category. King e7, knight d5 checkmate. Number 2. Attacking the castled king. All tactics that involve attacking a castled king. These would be ideas such as sacrifices to the surrounding pawns of a castled position, pawn storms, as well as many other possible tactical themes, with the specific distinction that the pattern was used to attack a castled king's position, either kingside or queenside. Of course, in such a position it is clear that white is better, but technique is still important. Queen b2, knight c4, knight takes g6 check. The key idea of this tactical motif: white blows open the castled black king by first sacrificing the knight on g6. White then wins by using a discovered check and cleaning up black's pawns. After queen takes g6, if h takes g6, rook h3 checkmate, rook takes c4 check, queen g7, queen takes g7 check, king takes g7, rook c7 check, king g6, rook takes a7. Number 3. Back rank. A back rank mate is when either the rook or queen is attacking the enemy king and this enemy king is trapped on the back rank, which means either the first or 8th rank, by his own army. Queen takes d1 check. The key idea of this tactical motif: black sacrifices the queen to lead to a forced checkmate along the first rank, which is considered white's back rank. A checkmate along 8th rank would be considered black's back rank. Either simple checkmates that lead to a back rank mate, or tactics involving this type of theme should be tagged under this category. Rook takes d1, rook takes d1 checkmate. Number 4. Basic checkmates. Any type of basic checkmating pattern. This definition does not apply to any position that happens to be checkmate in one or two moves, but rather, tactics that either use or climax in a basic checkmating pattern such as king and queen versus king, king and rook versus king, two rooks versus king, and two bishops versus king. The key idea of this tactical motif: white complete a basic checkmating pattern by delivering checkmate in 1, rook a8 checkmate. Number 5. Clearance sacrifice, or just clearance, is a term used to describe a deliberate sacrifice of material with the goal of clearing, of either a square, diagonal, or file. The most common clearance sacrifices open a critical diagonal, for example, the sacrifice of a pawn to open a square for a knight, like a pawn moving to e5 from e4, sacrificing itself in order to free the e4 square for a knight, would also be considered a positional, clearance sacrifice. Rook f8 check. The key idea of this tactical motif is white clears the long a2 grams 8 diagonal by sacrificing the rook on f8. White now finishes the game off with a forced Venus fly trap mating net after move rook takes f8, if bishop takes f8, queen g8 checkmate, so rook takes f8, queen g8 check, rook takes g8, knight f7 checkmate. This is just similar to smothered mate, how the knight checkmated the enemy king, but for this tutorial, we focus on tactical motif. I recommend that you also watch the top checkmate pattern, the ultimate guide, but we're not tackle yet the said lesson now, it's a separate video lesson. I put the link in the description below for you to look for it. So dear friends, let us continue to the next tactical motif. Number 6. Decoy, deflection. A decoy is a distraction. Often a player might use a decoy to force the opponent to think about something else, while the player is actually focused on a different target entirely. Deflection is a tactic that distracts an opponent's piece from doing its job, such as defending an important square, pinning a piece, or blocking an open file or diagonal. Many decoy, deflection tactics involve a sacrifice or a forcing move of some kind, thus, forcing the opponent to cooperate with the decoy, deflection tactic. They are similar in their goal, which is why we have classified them as one theme. Here is an example of each type of decoy, deflection. Rook f1 check, rook takes f1, queen h2 check. The key idea of this tactical motif is black sacrifices the queen, deflecting the enemy king to the h2 square, thus allowing black to under-promote to a knight on f1. By doing so, black forks the king and queen and wins the endgame. Without this deflection or decoy of the white king, the endgame would have likely ended a draw, but because of this tactics black wins by advantage. King takes h2, g takes f1 promote to a knight check, king g2, knight takes d2, king f2, king takes c7. Would be more of a deflection, while a decoy might be something like this. Queen g1 check. The key idea of this tactical motif: white sacrifices the queen on g1 as a decoy to lure the black queen away from the a1 h8 diagonal, where she is currently pinning white's pawn. After move, queen takes g1, g8 promote to a queen check, king f4, queen takes g1, white wins back the queen. White used the decoy sacrifice to perfection in this game. Number 7. Defense. To play defense, or to defend against an opponent's threat. One might defend a pawn with a piece, or you might play defensive moves on the kingside in order to stop your opponent's threats of a mating attack. By moving your pieces into position to guard and protect either a piece, a square, or a coming threat from your opponent, you are defending. We use this term for all tactics of a prophylactic or defensive nature. Often puzzles where the goal is to draw, and a defensive combination must be found in order to accomplish this, would be tagged under this category. King h1. The key idea of this tactical motif revealed. White plays the only move that draws. Black is now stuck in terms of progress. As long as white's bishop remains along the h1 a8 diagonal, white will be stalemated in the corner after bishop c6, f3 check, bishop takes f3 if king h1, g2 checkmate. If h1 promote to a queen check, king takes h1, king takes f3, if king f2, bishop g2, f3, bishop takes f3, king takes f3, If bishop e5, bishop e4 is a draw. With one other example of a necessary defensive move here. King h1. The key idea of this tactical motif. White removes the king from oncoming discovered attack, and in doing so, saves the game. Number 8. Desperado. A desperado tactic can sometimes be considered a sacrifice, depending on the position. The move captures an enemy piece when either one or more of your own pieces is already hanging undefended. When material is going to be lost regardless, these situations present a rare opportunity to be reckless and take out an enemy piece along the way. This tactic often happens when both white and black have pieces under attack. A desperado can also be considered a type of Zwischenzig tactic. Here's the example. e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, g6, c4, bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6, knight c3, knight g4, knight takes c6, queen takes g4 is best. Knight takes e3. The key idea of this tactical motif, both the g4 knight and the c6 knight were under attack, but instead of playing the simple recapture of the knight on c6, black chose to capture one of the white pieces. White then captures. Knight takes d8. The black queen instead of capturing back on e3. Black must now, knight takes d1, capture on d1. But instead of capturing back on d1, white can attempt another desperado tactic, trying to come away with a pawn after, knight takes f7. However, black gets the last laugh with one final desperado move by capturing on c3 with knight takes c3, and black eventually ends up on top in this Wild West shootout of desperado tactics. Another great example of a desperado tactic with positional results. Bishop a6. The key idea of this tactical motif. This positional combination is a desperado move that changes the game. Instead of trading the bishop on d3 for the knight on d6, white forces black to capture the bishop and destroy the queenside pawn structure in the process. This type of desperado might be considered similar to a Zwischenzig tactic as I mentioned earlier. B takes a6, c takes d6, and black is positionally losing with the weak c6 pawn and doubled isolated pawns. Number 9. Discovered attack, check. An attack that happens when one piece moves out of the way, opening a line for another attacking piece to threaten something, either checkmate or material. A discovered check is the same thing, but the revealed piece is attacking the enemy king, so it is also check. When the piece that moves to reveal the hidden attacker also attacks a piece, this may be referred to as a discovered double attack, check. Queen g3, rook takes g3, rook takes e8 checkmate. The key idea of this tactical motif. White captures the bishop on e8, placing a discovered check on the king from the bishop on d4. In this case, it is also a discovered double check because the king is in check by both the bishop and the rook. Would be one type of discovered double attack, check, while another would be as follows. Knight takes c6. The key idea of this tactical motif. White captures the c6 pawn, placing a discovered attack on the black queen by white's queen on e2. Because white is also threatening to capture on a7 checkmate, this is considered a discovered double attack. Queen takes e2. If bishop takes c6, queen takes e7, knight takes a7 checkmate. Number 10. Double check. Checking the enemy king with two different pieces on the same move is a powerful play. Unable to block or capture both threats at once, the king must always move to safety. Is white about to lose the exchange because his rook is pinned? Bishop d6 check. No, bishop d6 creates a deadly double check on the black king. Black would love to take either the rook or the bishop here, but can't take both. After the king moves, white will take the bishop, saving his rook. Number 11. En passant. The en passant capture is a special pawn attack in which the attacker may take an adjacent enemy pawn that has just jumped forward 2 squares. En passant captures often feature tactical themes, such as double or discovered attacks. f5. Black attacks the white queen. White could play e takes f5, en passant right away, but has a better plan. h5 check, king h6, knight takes e6 check, uncovering the bishop on c1 to check the king from afar. g5 jumps out to block the bishop. Note that the alternative, king h7, would lose to queen takes g7 checkmate. H takes g6 checkmate. The en passant capture rediscovers the bishop's attack and a new discovered attack from the h1 rook. Because white's attacking pawn now covers h7, this would be mate even if there were no rook on h1. Number 12. Endgame tactic. Any tactic that occurs in the endgame. The endgame is the last part of the game, and is generally believed to start when most of the pieces have been traded, especially after the queens are traded. Rook fe1. The key idea of this tactical motif: any tactic that occurs with few pieces remaining on the board, whether it be a winning or drawing tactic. So, if white, rook ff8, rook ac1 check. If a 1 promote to a queen, immediately would allow a draw by perpetual check. Rook d8 check, king e6, rook d8 check, king d7, rook d8 check, king e6, rook fe8 check, king f5. Let's go back. King b5. A1 promote to a queen is winning. If king d5, rook d8 check, king c7, rook c8 check, king b6, rook b8 check, king a5, rook a8 check, king b4, rook fb8 check, king a3 is winning. A1 promote to a queen, rook 1, e7 checkmate. Rook takes e1, rook takes e1 is winning. Number 13. Exchange sacrifice. A small sacrifice of material to achieve something greater. The term exchange sacrifice specifically refers to the sacrifice of a rook for a minor piece, knight or bishop, and is usually only one necessary step along the way of a forcing sequence of moves. Rook takes f6. The key idea of this tactical motif: white sacrifices an exchange temporarily to force black's queen onto a bad square. After the move, king takes f6, knight e4 check. White applies a fork and win the game. Number 14. Fork, double attack. A double attack is an attack or threat on two things at once. The advantage of a double attack is that it is hard to defend two things with one move. We use the term fork to describe a double attack by a single unit, usually a knight, queen, or pawn. Rook c7. The key idea of this tactical motif: white applies a double attack on the knight and bishop. Any puzzle using climax with a similar theme would require this tag. Would be a simplified version of a double attack, while a fork would be seen here. Knight e7 check. The key idea of this tactical motif: white forks the king and rook, winning material. b4 would also be considered a fork, example a double attack by the pawn. Number 15. Hanging piece. Hanging is another way of saying undefended or loose in chess. A tactic that involves simply taking or exposing undefended pieces in some way would qualify. Under this theme, one might also consider a forcing combination that climaxes with a double attack, with one or more of the targets being undefended. b4. The key idea of this tactical motif: with both white's knight on e1 and black's knight on c4 hanging, white plays a two-move combination that forces black's bishop onto an unprotected square. White then follows with bishop takes b4, knight c2, and both black's pieces are left hanging. Black is unable to defend both in one move, and will lose material. Would be an example of multiple hanging pieces, similar to a double attack. Here's another. Bishop takes d4, e takes d4, queen f5, knight c7, queen f5. The key idea of this tactical motif: black must stop the threat of checkmate on h7 by playing g6, and black f6 bishop hangs in the end, g6, queen takes f6. Number 16. Interference. To move a piece between two other attacking pieces when at least one of those attacking pieces is an opponent's piece. Sometimes a piece will interfere with two attacking pieces, thus creating confusion and often overloading. With white pieces both successfully guarding past pawns, black finds a way to interfere with the rook and bishop at the same time by playing bishop d6, rook takes d6. If bishop takes d6, d1 promote to a queen check. h2, rook a6 check. If rook takes d2, h1 promote to a queen. King b5, rook b6 check, king c5, and black will queen one of the pawns. Number 17. Mate in 1. Any puzzle, position that ends with checkmate in one move. Queen takes h7 checkmate. The key idea of this tactical motif is self-explanatory. And lastly, this is the end of part 1. Before we proceed of number 18, I suggest that you also watch the video of the continuation of this tactical motif, part 2, see you there, so that it would help you learn these things completely. Number 18. Mate in 2. Any puzzle position that ends with checkmate in 2 moves. Queen takes h7 check. The key idea of this tactical motif, king takes h7, rook h5 checkmate. My dear friends, now it's your turn. Test yourselves what you have learned in our lessons. Here's the puzzle trainer. White to play and find the best move using our tactical motif. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, and share it with your friends, so we can keep making them. For more videos like this, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit on the notification bell. Also, be sure to check out our other videos as well. Thanks for watching.